Hey everyone, and welcome to today's video. We're going to be sharing with you some of our insights, reflections about the last year of school for our oldest daughter. She just finished out first grade in scuola primaria, or primary school, here in northern Italy. If you've been following us for some time now, you'll know that we did a video a couple months ago where we did share some of our initial impressions of the Italian school system and some things that we were kind of surprised with, hoped that they were going to change. And in today's video, we'll give you a few of those updates and then just give our overall impressions on how we think the first year went. And for those of you who are just joining us for the first time, we're an American family who lives in northern Italy, near the city of Vicenza, and we've been here for the last 18 months. We've really tried to get integrated into the community here, having our kids go to the local schools, learning as much Italian as possible, and really try to learn and explore so much of what Italy has to offer. So definitely take a look at some of our other videos that we've done since being here in Italy. So today, we got this huge stack of books, notebooks, I should say, and this is only half of them. The last 2 days she's come home with huge piles of books, and honestly, I forgot how many of these that we had purchased at the first of the year. And some of them they didn't even get to, and they told us to bring them back in the fall, in September, when she starts again. So overall, a lot of paper and a lot of workbooks to go through. And that's a perfect segue into this section. Of course, this isn't really a big surprise to have some books like this. This is Colibri, the hummingbird. And they do little activities because she's in first grade. They've been learning a lot of the letters, a lot of the numbers. So not too surprising that they have workbooks like this where they are all able to follow along and learn some of the basics. But what has been surprising has been some of the other books. For example, there's a book like this one, Tecnologia, for her technology class. And when I open it up, you'll notice that it's just normal paper that they write on there. But then you'll see these papers that are glued in. And this one, maybe not too bad. But this one, on the other hand, where they were learning the parts of the body, which has actually been amazing study materials for Rissa and I, as we're learning new parts of the body in Italian and stuff. These are 2 complete pages that they have been given from the teachers, and they glue them right into their pages. And I probably could go through this whole book, and so much of it is just little pages that they were given, that the teachers printed out, and then they glued them into the book. I cannot tell you and stress how many glue sticks we have went through this year. I swear that we've gone through probably 15 or 20 of them in one school year. Maybe this is very normal, but please tell me if you have your kids going to Italian public school. Let us know if this is common, because this was so surprising to us. And even the other Italian parents that I would talk to in pickup and drop off at school, they were all saying the same thing, we have gone through so many glue sticks. Just a unique little thing. But gonna go back to this book for a second, because as you can see in some of these pages, all of the pages are these little squares, right? So they could be used for anything. I think I typically would see these for math or graphing, my experience through high school and college and whatever. So I didn't really see so much of these notebooks. They were just basic lines that I remember. And I'm no expert because I don't know the behind the scenes. I'm sure the teachers are doing the best that they can. I am not here to judge. It just would make sense, in my opinion, rather than having every single kid buy tons of these notebooks, to have a book that is made by some sort of schooling company that has basically all the same materials that they're hoping to cover in here, but already printed out, so that the teachers aren't having to print out all of these pages, give them to the students, and then the students are needing to glue them into the workbooks. Just my 2 cents. What are your guys' thoughts? Is this common? Would love to hear your insight. Okay, now that I've got the gluing the pages in there off my chest, probably one of the most surprising aspects of sending Willa to the Italian school has been the amount of homework that her and her friends come home with almost daily. Now, I will have to say that a lot of this homework is just simple coloring, right? And activities and, dot-to-dot exercises. So nothing really complex. But we will be honest, Rissa and I noticed that there was quite a bit of stress that was built up with the idea of having homework. And we really try to do our best to play it down, say we'll have time to take care of it, let's take care of it as we go. But it was just the consistency of having the homework almost every single day, and even on Fridays, when these kids are only 5 and 6 years old. Now, granted, the homework, just to give you a little example, this one right here, they would draw a little house with an X next to it, and here it says colorare, impare e mese. So a lot of this was just, okay, we're going to be coloring and drawing, writing the numbers of each of the months, and then coloring the little figures that are with it. So honestly, nothing really that difficult, but honestly, we just feel like for the first year into like an organized school setting, it just seemed like it came on a little too fast. And some of you had even commented on that other video that this was to prepare them as they get into bigger grades, higher complexity, that they would just be used to the fact of having homework. And in some ways I get that, but in our humble perspective, that just seemed like a little too early to be having as much homework. Like twice a week maybe would be nice. But then again, at least for her school, they didn't have the same classes every day. So about every other day or every third day, they would be rotating through the subjects. In that sense, in order for every single subject to be able to have some sort of practice at home, then it would make sense that they would have homework every single day. For us, looking back over the entire year, it just seemed like it would have been better off and a better transition for all of the first year students to not have as much homework. And speaking about homework, I know in the US and in other countries, I'm sure there are summer workbooks, much like this one that we just got the other day, where the teachers promote and have the students try to keep up on reading, writing, other activities so that they are better prepared when they come back in. So this one, again, not going to be that difficult. I'm sure we'll try to do it as we go, but I'm not even sure if there's like a technical requirement for them to have it done for them to check off when they get back in. Okay. All right, I'm gonna move this stack over here. Did I mention that's only half of the stack? All right, next topic is about cartoons. Now, in our last video that we talked about schooling, this was one of those surprised moments that Rissa and I were like, wait, what? Willa came home one day and was telling us that they were watching cartoons during snack time, and we said, you're doing that every day? And she said, yeah. She's like, it's the way that the teacher is able to get kids to sit down, be calm, and eat their snacks during snack time. And we were just like wide-eyed to each other, wait, what? And at first I was like, no, surely it can't be like every day. But, you know, Willa kept saying that it was every day. And I confirmed that with some of the other parents, and I asked them how they felt about it. And a lot of them were the same way. They said every now and then wouldn't be that big of an issue, but like we also don't really care to have our kids go and watch cartoons. And I'm talking like Tom and Jerry, Sasha the Bear, I think it's Sasha, right? And other cartoons. And on one hand, you might think, okay, well, she's getting good exposure to the Italian language through Italian TV. I do get that sentiment, but like, there's not a lot of talking in Tom and Jerry and some of these other shows. But two, it's more worrisome about the fact that they're needing to do this for the kids to sit down and like eat their snacks. And knowing a little bit about Rissa and her background as a registered dietitian, we just have never allowed electronics to be at the table as far as like eating and watching something while we eat. We just really want to focus on the food, focus on how we are feeling, how much we're eating, what it tastes like, other conversations in general. So we weren't huge fans of that. So long story short with this whole situation, coming it to the end of the year, I asked Willa again, like, are you guys watching cartoons? And she said, no, like we've stopped doing that. I don't really think that it stopped that much long ago, like maybe sometime in April. I'm thinking is probably when it stopped, but I don't remember the exact date. However, one thing I definitely did is, as I was talking to these other parents, I did send a message to like the parent leader for our class. You know, I asked her what her thoughts and feelings are, and she said that she had several of the other parents saying the same thing. Eventually, she did have a meeting, and they did discuss this, and the teacher shared that they were doing the cartoons to try and get everyone settled down because they had a select number of kids, like, I don't know, 2 or 4 kids that were having just such a really difficult time, and they were causing a lot of ruckus within the classroom. We talked about that quite a bit in the last video, and we asked you guys if that was common for your kids going to Italian school, and some said yes, others said no way. And honestly, like, it's always hard to hear if like your kid is going to school and TV is doing a lot of like the teaching. Electronics definitely have their place in education, but for a bunch of 5 and 6-year-olds watching Tom and Jerry, it's a little difficult to feel like we're sending our kids to get an education and they're having cartoon time. In addition to that was the conversation about letting the kids get outside. Willa told us a couple times that they weren't even able to go outside all day, and it would be a beautiful day in like the mid-20s or like the mid-60s, in like the mid-20s or like the mid-70s, beautiful sunny days, or even colder, but like just beautiful days. And we said, oh, did you go outside today? And she said, no, we didn't go outside. And we'd ask her, why not? And she said, well, so-and-so and so-and-so were yelling or fighting or whatever. And the teacher said, okay, no one's going outside today. And it's just like not the thing that you want to hear as a parent. And so we had several conversations with the other parents as well about this. It was like, okay, well, the kids are having cartoons during snack time. and they're not getting outside. Maybe that explains a little of like the high emotions, like Willow would come home, she would be really tired, have high emotions. Any normal kid, I mean, heck, even if I'm stuck inside all day, like I want to be outside. I need those breaks. It was really hard to hear. Fortunately, the class rep and the other parents were all on the same board, so we talked again to the teachers. Thankfully, they were able to implement what seemed to be a higher frequency of letting the kids go outside. I won't sugarcoat it. I do still think that they did not go out nearly as often as they should. I'm curious to hear from all of you. Please write in the comments below and share how many times per day or for how long each school day do your kids get to go outside and play? Or if you remember when you were a kid, please share where you're from, when that was, like how often you got to go outside. Because for us, we want our kids to be able to connect with nature. We don't want them to be just stuck inside all the time. And of course, I'm sure that the best thing to do would be to have them go into like a forest school or a nature-led school. But for us, that's just not feasible in the situation. And we've still been happy in a lot of other ways with the schooling. But I am interested to hear from you guys, so please be sure to share down below. Okay, next topic is to talk about like the community that comes with the school. I think it's been really fun to see how interactive and how supportive all the Italian parents are for their kids going to school. There's one bus that picks up a group of students, but for the most part, it's parents and grandparents dropping off and picking up every single day. And it's been really fun to see like the parents and the grandparents get in their groups, communicate, and honestly just to see like the interactions between their kids and the parents is really fun. A lot of them are giving kisses and hugs and just really looking forward and being present in those moments. And one thing that is very interesting coming as an American who I am at fault of doing this when I'm waiting for short times, none of the parents or grandparents, almost none. It is so rare to see someone on their phone while they're waiting to drop off or pick up their kids. And it's been really refreshing to me, and it's been a great role model for me as well, because I'll stand in the line at the pharmacy, I'll stand in the line X, Y, and Z place, and I catch myself being like, well, I'll check my email or I'll check this. It's been really refreshing to see people just be present, even if they're not talking to anybody. They're just looking, they're just waiting. I think that's just been such a stark difference. Now, I could be very wrong. It's been a while since we've lived in Utah, but if we were to have our kids in Utah and going to a public school and we were doing the same thing, like pick up and drop off in front of the school, I am almost positive, I'd probably be willing to put money on this, maybe like $5, that there would be many more people, if not the majority of people, not communicating or talking with each other, but on their phones. Of course, that's a cultural thing. So here I am recognizing this. And it was very similar, like in Japan and in Germany. Very few times I would see parents at school pick up or drop off ever be on their phones. And so it's just an interesting observation more than anything. Okay, this one was perfect timing because just this last week I was listening to a message from someone who was sharing their experience about their kid getting an award at the end of the year assembly. Now, this was happening in the States, and it just got me thinking about my time in elementary school, high school, middle school, you name it. Every end of the year came with an end of the year assembly. And at that assembly, that came with awards for the person who had perfect attendance, who had perfect grades, who did the best at X, Y, Z. And that was like common, like very, very common. Awards were given out, presentation, like it was a big deal. And of course, like, I don't think all of it was for competition. I think a lot of it was just for recognition so that people would be able to recognize that this person was a high performer, they tried their best. But looking at it now, it definitely seems more of a competition than I ever thought about it before. Willis School didn't have any of that. In fact, the last activity that they did was a school musical where the music teacher, the students, the parents, the teachers all got together and did this 45-minute musical presentation where they got to showcase the skills and the songs that they were learning all together. Of course, they highlighted one of the teachers who's going to be retiring. So, like, I guess there was that, like, little parting gift that they gave, but, like, no awards given to any of, like, the 5th graders who were leaving on to the next school next year. Nothing. Like, it was all just, they were there to celebrate with each other and celebrate the end of the year, and in so many ways that was cool because there was no focus on, I guess, the academic side of things. Now, I don't know if the teachers did anything like just within the students, but it's very common for these assemblies to have parents invited and to have them often. In fact, I remember through our elementary school, it wasn't just once a year. It was probably like every quarter or 3 times a year or something. There were quite a few of them, and yeah, just very interesting. So I'm interested to hear if there are any exceptions to that policy. Does that change when they get to like middle school or high school here in Italy? And for folks watching from Germany, like, are award assemblies a thing? Let us know. Okay, it is getting plenty dark, so I'll wrap this one up here. Overall, my impression about the first year of school is that it was a good year, and I'm really excited to see what happens next year for her. Willa is doing amazing. She's been a hard worker her whole life, and we're very proud of her for what she's doing, especially where she is learning to read in English and Italian at the same time. I think it's been beneficial for her. I honestly think that she's able to read Italian easier than English because there are far fewer rules when it comes to vowel placement, etc. Like, even for me, looking at and reading Italian just seems much more simple. I will say that I'm really hopeful this next year there are no cartoons, they get more breaks, and that the homework can maybe die down a little bit. Okay, I know I might be like wishing a little too hard on that last one. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us here today. We hope you've really enjoyed listening to some of our insights. Please let us know in the comments below what other questions you might have about like our perspective or our opinions about Italian school systems. Maybe there's something we didn't talk about today that you're like, oh, what do you think about this? We'd love to continue the conversation in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for the support. We'll see you in the next video.